You guys are still here?
Hey, you actually came back.
I did come back.
We're waiting for you. We had so
Alright.
much to talk about, but we didn't want to start till you
Well,
got
I
back.
have the first article, so...
Yeah, well, there
So
you
you
go.
better start talking.
Come
Yeah,
on,
okay.
get into it.
Alright, well, this is an editor pick. It's from Wired.com by Jeffrey Marlowe, entitled, "Is This the Opera of the Future?" And basically, there's this whole production that was happening in Los Angeles' Union Station of an opera
Yeah,
in a train station. Isn't that amazing?
that's awesome.
That's
I
so
love
crazy.
it.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
Basically, this three companies kind of collaborated. Invisible Cities is the name of the piece, and this company, an opera company called The Industry, and they purposely don't call themselves the Industry Opera, I think because they want to get away from people's traditional views when they hear the word opera, so they're called The Industry.
Don't use the word
Don't
opera.
use the word
at all.
opera. It's a co-collaboration between them, LA Dance Project, and Sennheiser. And it's kind of amazing. This composer, Chris Cerrone, created this whole opera, Invisible Cities, that details Kubla Khan and Marco Polo conversing. So yeah, it's kind of amazing. And the cool thing is that because obviously you have a working train station, the audience members all listen to the opera via headset and could roam around wherever they choose. What do you guys think?
I thought it was really interesting that they had the orchestra in a completely different room from each different singer. All the singers were everywhere.
Yeah.
How do you even the article implied? I don't know if this is true or not. That there was no conductor, which I thought was so fascinating because they weren't giving cues to the singers. And
But
the
there were
orchestra was all
specific cues
working-
built into
Yeah,
the...
it built into the music for the singers
Yeah.
to work off of, which I thought that was really fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
incredible.
I just think it's so cool. I mean, it's kind of like seeing Alice in Bed last week at the warehouse, and an actor's speaking over there, and you can kind of hear their voice, but then they're mic'd, and then you can kind of hear their voice from the speaker
Right.
coming from like a different place, and it's very like magical.
Totally.
Yeah,
Completely.
yeah,
Anyway, the pictures that they had, it looked really beautiful. What a
Yeah.
cool space.
Yeah.
Union Station. Yeah, it made me think of Grand Central in New York. Like grand and majestic and old.
and just like listening
Yeah.
to it like that would be so kind of intimate and
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah.
And kind of private, but then you're in this grand public space and everyone else is listening as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing the article said, wasn't it? That like it's so individual that
Mm.
everyone has a different experience.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
just
that
you're
was great.
walking around. Yeah,
Yeah.
as well. Totally.
And they make a good point. Like, what was the quote of the director? They're like, well, this is you're not gonna whatever the audience sees is not gonna be the thing. I misquote him, but he had this wonderful quote about how it's each experience of watching this opera is going to be individual and different.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Camille Rorlick writes, site-specific theater is often very difficult on the technical side, and so is opera, and working the two together must be insane! Everything's insane this week.
What do you guys think? Think it's gonna catch on?
I don't know in that specific form, but like people doing opera in other spaces and trying to vary with the form and stuff, I think that's happening all
Just
over the
in
place.
general, yeah, more immersive theater is the wave right now.
Yeah.
It's the fad, and I think it's only going to grow.
And I think it's cool that it's happening with opera. I mean, I haven't heard about it with opera before, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
This is
just,
the first
I
I've
mean,
heard
I
of that.
agree with Camille, it just sounds insane and really difficult, but
It makes me want to know like how you came up with this idea. Opera in a train station? That's really out there.
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know.
very cool. Yeah. Well, what's the next article?
Well, the next one is Can Art Teach Patience? And it's by Bob Duggan from BigThink.com. It's the editor pick. And basically the article is kind of complicated, but basically there was this Harvard University art history professor called Dr. Jennifer Roberts who wanted her students to like slow down and appreciate art. So she gave them this assignment where they would have to spend like a full 3 hours sitting in a museum looking at this piece of artwork that they were going to like write their paper on, and trying to force them to like experience the work in a different way and like realize what it could be to like look at something for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, the article
Like
kind of starts
3
with
hours.
Yeah.
You have to look at this painting for 3 hours.
that. And like, what can you see?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was interesting because then I guess the students would say, well, at 9 minutes I noticed this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at 46 minutes this occurred to me.
Yeah,
You know, and there's a whole process
Yeah.
to it.
I thought it was super interesting. What do you think?
I thought it was really interesting. I know in my art history class in undergrad, we would have to sit there and look at paintings, and the professor would put them up on like the PowerPoint in front of the whole lecture class, and then she'd walk out of the room for like 5 or 10 minutes, and we would just look at this painting and like figure out what we could see
Hmm.
and what thoughts occurred to us, and then she'd come back in and we'd talk about it, and like sometimes we'd be like, oh, we didn't really see much, like
Yeah.
it's a painting, and we'd have like 5 minute discussion, and other times we'd come back 2 hours later, we'd still be talking about this painting.
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on what you're looking at and what your individual tastes
Yeah.
are. Like I know I can look at a painting for 5 minutes, be like, oh, whatever, and then move on to another one and look at it for like 20 or 30 minutes and
Yeah.
still find new things interesting about it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it's really, I mean, the article's talking a lot about, you know, art galleries and how people just kind of cruise through things and like
Yeah.
look at things for like 10
Yeah,
seconds. or-
10 to 17 seconds. And the
read.
Mona Lisa, the average viewer is 15
15
seconds.
seconds.
Now, to
Yeah.
be fair, you can't get anywhere near
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You cannot. I was like,
Yeah, exactly.
I want to look at this for longer, but someone's shoving me. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
I couldn't even see over the shoulders of anyone around me. I'm like peeking over.
Yeah. Deeply uncomfortable. Yeah.
You know, it made me think of, have either of you ever done that, like spent a very long time looking at a work of art in a museum?
Yeah, because I
Not
used to
in a
work
museum.
in an art museum.
Did
and so,
you?
yeah, so I would spend hours
Yeah.
looking at certain pieces of art. Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my 5 or so favorite paintings at the Met, but in undergrad I had an assignment once where I had to go to a museum for this directing class and pick a painting, and I had to describe it in detail. So I had to, write about it for a while. So I really spent some time with this thing, and then it had to be a portrait, and I had to write an entire monologue that this portrait would be saying.
That's cool.
That's
You know,
really cool.
this person in the portrait, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's really fascinating to become that intimate with the
Totally.
work of visual art.
I mean, I liked what the article was saying about, like, you know, especially in this day and age, and we get a lot of, like, visual stimuli all the time, but, like, we view things, but we don't necessarily, like, see things, you know?
Yeah.
You look, but you don't see.
Yeah.
It's true. We've got so
Yeah.
much information and technology flying in front of our faces that why would students now stop to look
Yeah.
at this 200-year-old painting?
Well, Lindsay Coda says, by looking at a piece of artwork for a significant amount of time, it gives the viewer self-confidence, awareness, and a new pair of eyes.
Self-confidence. How so?
I just, as I read that, I was like, huh?
I suddenly feel more confident.
I just think, like, confident in, like, what you're seeing and how you can describe it, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
more confident in your assessment of it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not
That
like-
makes sense.
I will go and do this thing
I am
now.
omnipotent.
All right.
Well,
Good.
you got an article for us?
Yeah,
this segment?
more creativity
Thanks,
stuff.
Jess.
Why Creativity Thrives in the Dark by Eric Jaff. This one's off of fastcodesign.com.
I found it fascinating.
I actually read this
I did.
article before it was even on the green
Mock
page.
me. I did find it fascinating.
You were
That
just,
makes
she
two.
didn't even see anything. You were like, yeah, right in there, fascinating.
Yes.
Alright, well, what Quinn is so excited about is there were 2 psychologists, Anna Steidel and Leoba Wirth, who did a series of experiments that were designed to measure how creativity responded to various lighting schemes. And basically what they did was they put a bunch of people, they did 2, sorry. They had a bunch of someones, describe a dark room and then draw an alien from an outer galaxy. And then describe a really bright room and draw an alien. And those 2 different groups of people, apparently the ones who described a really bright room, came up with like really generic aliens, and the ones who described a really dark place came up with like really creative aliens with legs on their heads and stuff like this. And then they did another series of experiments where they put people in really dim rooms and had them do creativity problems and logic problems. And then put people in like a normal kind of lit room and then a really, really bright room and had them do the same things. And what they found was that people in the dark rooms came up with more creative answers, while people in the bright rooms were able to solve the logic problems better. Which I think is really interesting.
I thought it was fascinating, and it made sense to me so much because my mum is like the most logical person, and she's always like trying to put more like when I've been doing my homework at home, she'd be like, "You need more light." and like get like 4 lamps and like put them on my desk. And then the other day I was talking to her and she's like, "Do you have enough light in your room?" And I'm like, "I'm good. Like I'm sitting here in the dim light doing my creative stuff. Like I'm good."
Exactly. Whereas here, you know, in the podcast, we're in Logic World.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so bright in this room.
Yeah, it's so bright.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because this is a sound lab. You're supposed to be doing really creative things and coming up with sound cues.
Yeah,
and
no, they need some
maybe
lamps.
They put some different lighting
Floor
in here.
lamps.
Yeah.
Track lighting.
I mean,
something.
it's in StuTech, the stage management office down the hall. We have the bright overhead fluorescents, and then we all have like desk lamps. And sometimes we just turn on the desk lamps. We're like, oh, we don't want the bright lights today.
Yeah.
Because we're all in creative moods.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it as I was coming up today, this afternoon, and I could see a couple people remaining in their offices on the second floor, and there was a guy with just like a floor lamp on,
Yeah.
dimly lit, typing
Yeah.
away. It's like, oh, I wonder if he's writing something creative.
Well, I like the suggestion the article had about like creating workplaces where you have like different spaces. So, or like having your own kind of workstation where you can like adjust the lights. You're like, okay, it's like first thing in the morning, I'm gonna like take care of business, bright light on,
Yeah.
and then turn it down in the afternoon, a little more creativity, something
Yeah.
like that.
I do find that I've
Sexy.
changed the light wherever I am, depending on what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm really tired. I need dim light, more
Yeah.
comfortable. And other times I'm like, oh, I need to focus on this thing and get it done.
Yeah.
And that's when I always turn all my lights on.
I think theatre people are really aware of light, like as
Completely.
a
Mhm.
thing, because we use it so much as a medium. But it's funny how kind of everyday people aren't so aware of it, and then you'll like change the light, and you're like, oh my god, that's so much better.
Completely.
And you're like, yeah.
Just think, I mean, that's an important part of the rehearsal process when suddenly you get out of the bright rehearsal studio
Yeah.
and you're in a specifically lit
Yeah.
theater, and
Yeah.
it's magic.
And even like when I'm like doing devising or whatever, or we're doing like improvs, and like if something's kind of a sensitive or delicate thing, I'll like turn down the lights,
Oh,
or like
sexy.
just like set, just help set the mood or the
Yeah.
atmosphere, help the actors.
I had a
Nice.
director this summer who we were rehearsing in a dance studio and had all like fluorescent gym lighting, and we were doing the very end of Sound of Music where they're in the graveyard and they're sneaking away, and so he's like, I'm done, we can't do this, turn all the lights off.
Yeah,
And so we like shut all the doors, turn all the lights off, and then we blocked the scene
yeah,
in
Wow.
complete darkness.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
it's great.
Yeah.
Lighting.
Sophie Hood agrees with everything that we've been saying. She says, I have to admit that I come up with a lot of ideas right before falling asleep, while laying in bed and just
Yeah.
staring into the darkness, and I love the peace of early morning, right at the crack of dawn, when it feels like you're the only one awake. On the other hand, when I'm building things, creating clothing, drafting patterns, etc., I'm the most effective in really great natural lighting.
Mm.
Nice.
Nice.
Well put, Sophie.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that ends this segment.
I'm calling it. I'm calling
You're
it.
calling it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Uh,
I'm gonna.
All right,
I'll
you
see
get
you
out of
guys.
here, Eleanor.
Yeah.
See you later.